So we have Omar Sherbini here from the GLIA project. He is one of the, we call him the chief mastermind of the GLIA project. He works at Children's Hospital Philadelphia and is a go everywhere, do everything, up at every hour of the night kind of guy. He's here to talk about what the GLIA project is doing right now and how they're interfacing with the LD community. So thanks, Omar.
Thanks, Keith. So I'd like to start by first of all thanking ALD Connect for having me. It's an honor to be here to talk a little bit about the Global Leukodystrophy Initiative, basically what we're doing right now, what we're working towards. As Keith said, I'm actually a administrative manager at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So this is not my day job, but I am privileged enough to also be able to coordinate some of the activities that the GLIA CTN focuses on. So I could have easily turned this into an hour-long presentation. I won't do that because I think some people here might not be very happy with me. So we'll try to get through this in about 10-15 minutes. So looking at this first slide, that's our logo. I'd also like to highlight the logo in the bottom right corner of the screen. So that is the Rare Disease Clinical Research Network logo, or RDCRN. It is basically an NIH-funded sort of master consortium of rare disease consortia, and we're lucky enough to be one of them. So I just mentioned that because a lot of our funding does come from the NIH, and I'll explain why that's relevant. And so I've broken down this talk sort of into 4 different parts. I'll go over very briefly sort of who we are for those of you who don't know yet. And I think our mission statement captures that. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I am going to highlight these parts in blue. So basically, sort of overall, we are a group of clinicians, researchers, and advocacy leaders who all care very deeply about promoting advances in the diagnosis and treatment of leukodystrophies. So, I mean, that's a that's a very lofty goal, and I will acknowledge that we're not trying to achieve this on our own. Basically, what we have set out to do, sort of our small piece of the pie, if you will, is to create an infrastructure that allows for collection, sharing, and analysis of things like natural history data, functional outcome measures, and biomarkers. And so basically, these are the things that you would need, if you will, as the key ingredients to get to a state of clinical trial readiness in a given leukodystrophy. So to whatever degree we can contribute to that, that's basically what we are interested in doing. And so aside from serving as a technical resource, we also want to serve as an ally to the community, to different stakeholders in the community. Not really to tell anybody what to do or how to do it, but rather just by seeking out opportunities to collaborate with different stakeholders. And Maria Kafalas, whom I know many of you know, once referred to us as the Switzerland of the leukodystrophy community. And I think that does actually kind of summarize sort of how we see ourselves. We basically want to be out there promoting collaboration and partnership, but not necessarily taking a position on anything or telling anybody what to do. So this is our formal network. I say formal because these are the sites who are actively receiving funding through the NIH grant that I referenced earlier. That said, this is kind of an incomplete picture. We do also manage to solicit support from other sources and use that funding to support other investigators, and stakeholders in the community who are not represented on this map. And in terms of numbers, just pull up some over here. So the 8 clinical centers is what I just showed on the map before that. We do, consider ourselves partners to really all leukodystrophy advocacy organizations, and there are many of them. As far as our research goes, so we have over 4,000 participants enrolled in our biorepository, which really serves as a hub for natural history data, but then also biospecimen. And that's basically what we use to drive our own research projects, but then also to drive collaborative efforts within the community that we try to support. And then the 5 to 15 years figure you see there basically refers to our grant funding from the NIH. It is broken down into 3 5-year cycles. We are currently in the first cycle. So we have 5 years of funding, and then that's renewable for up to 15 years. So moving on to what we do. These are our research projects. I am not going to go into them in detail because I can already see Florian's eyes glazing over. But one of the things that I'd like to emphasize is just a common misconception, which is that these are the leukodystrophies that we're sort of exclusively focused on. I mean, to some degree, as far as the grant goes, that's true. We do need to pick something to work on. But I think what I'm going to emphasize, and I really intend for this to be a theme of this talk, is that the GLIA CTN Above and Beyond is an infrastructure grant. So yes, we are working on these conditions, but really our goal is to develop tools and approaches that then can be repurposed for other leukodystrophies. And that is really what we would consider a successful outcome. And so it's not just about doing research. So what we also want to be able to do is to support the next generation of researchers in their own work. And we do this by issuing career development awards and pilot project awards every year. I'll talk briefly about the awards themselves towards the end of my talk, but for now, I'd just like to highlight some of our past recipients, some of whom are here today, starting with Eric, who was actually our first Career Development Award recipient, and used that award to focus on the prospective natural history of ALD boys who are identified by newborn screening approaches. And since then, we've also issued some additional awards. Isha Srivastava at Stanford is one of our most recent recipients. She's going to be looking at inflammasome activation in cerebral ALD. Then we have Jen Orthman Murphy at Penn, who's going to be looking at clinical and functional studies in ALSP. And last but not least, Amina Smith-Fine, who's also here today, and received a research supplement through the NIH, which basically provided over $100,000 in funding to look at wearable technologies and neuroimaging in LBSL, some of which we heard about today. So it's very exciting. And it's not just about supporting investigators. We recognize that career interests are formed much earlier on. These are some of the coordinators at CHOP who participated in a pilot program known as the Pre-Doc Preparatory Program in Translational Research. So basically, it's a one-year coordinator-facing program that is designed to equip coordinators with fundamental translational research skills. We launched it last year. Now we've relaunched it for a second year, and this time it includes coordinators at the other centers in the GLIA CTN that I showed on that map. And it's been very well received so far, and so we hope to expand that even further. And so those are some of the ways that we support education and career development. In terms of how we work together, I think this is really kind of the meat and sort of the message that I wanted to deliver today. Aside from career development, I think we also provide infrastructure support, and this goes back to the idea of GLIA CTN really being an infrastructure grant rather than a very disease-specific one. And so this is a very busy slide that I'm not going to go over in detail, but I think it highlights some of the specialty groups that we've already been able to create since we received this award in 2019. These are groups of legal, regulatory, and technical experts who obviously provide day-to-day support to our own research projects, but then are also able to provide in-kind support to a variety of stakeholders, whether it's the recipients of our career development awards, external collaborators, or even members of the advocacy community who are interested in leveraging existing data to support their own initiatives. So I should emphasize that these are resources that are really available to everybody, and our goal is to basically make them available and have folks be able to tap into this expertise. rather than reinventing the wheel. And just to show how this, what this looks like in practice, these are some concrete examples of recent grant applications, some of which have been awarded, some of which are still in process, that have leveraged, existing clinical data, biological samples, research protocols that are basically existing through the GLIA CTN. So, I think for those of us who help organize this and manage the program, this is very, very rewarding to see, because this is basically, what we're trying to achieve. And then, wrapping up, I think what a lot of people know us for is hosting conferences. And so I wanted to highlight that as well. These are some of the events that we've hosted over the past couple of years. There's a typo in there. The GLIA Advocacy Workshop and Scientific Meeting actually happened in October, not right now. It'd be kind of hard to be in two different places at once. But I think, this kind of highlights the work that we've done. I'd also like to kind of emphasize where we've come from and where we're going. So this is a photo that Dean and Terrence Sir were kind enough to share with me, taken in 2013 from the first GLIA scientific meeting. I say GLIA loosely because at the time it was just known as the Leukodystrophy Consortium. Very creative. And this basically gave rise to GLIA. So we've come from there to, see if I can bring this up, to here. So this photo was taken exactly 1 month ago at CHOP, at the most recent GLIA Advocacy Workshop and Scientific Meeting. So I think you'll see that we have grown quite a bit. And it's not just growth in terms of the size of the consortium or its following, but I think also in terms of our ability to solicit and analyze feedback from the community in a more systematic way. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this, but one of the things that we did very successfully for our last scientific meeting is that we basically polled key opinion leaders in each of the 17 leukodystrophies that were represented on the state of disease-modifying therapeutic development and advances in clinical care, and basically asked them to look at these rubrics and assign a score based on how far advanced they thought we were in these areas. And that included clinicians, researchers, advocacy leaders, industry representatives. And basically we used those that survey data to generate these heat maps where basically you can just take a very quick look and sort of know at first glance where a given leukodystrophy is in terms of those rubrics. This is a representative one for ALD. We developed similar heat maps for all the other leukodystrophies. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but it was discussed at the meeting, and we are going to be uploading a recording of that discussion for those who want to watch it. And then very briefly in the last couple of minutes, just a quick preview of what we're working on now and sort of what comes up next. So I mentioned career development. We do have open RFAs for both our Pilot Project Award and our Career Development Award. More information at our website if anybody wants to look at how to apply. Still plenty of time to apply. These are not due until end of February. I'd also like to give a shout out to the initiatives that our advocacy committee is working on, both in terms of improving the quantity and effectiveness of patient registries, and then also the quality of communication and collaboration with the FDA. And I think these were selected as strategic goals just because the advocacy community can align on them as key goals right now. And then as far as we're concerned, from a grants management perspective, we're already looking ahead. As I mentioned, this is up to a 15-year grant. And so, we're planning to reapply, and the next cycle would start in 2025, so that's really creeping up. And then I'd like to end on, on this slide because I think it really captures the message that I'm trying to deliver, which is that we're not out here working in a vacuum, as I said before, trying to tell people what to do and how to do it. Basically, if the work that we're doing isn't meaningful to patients and to the patient community, then we really just need to ask ourselves if we're focusing on the right thing. And that is why engagement with the advocacy community is so important, and such a mission critical part of what we do. And so, we rely on feedback from our advocacy leaders to be able to assess whether we're focusing our efforts appropriately. And then we also depend on our advocacy partners to help, to help drive the actual work that we're doing, whether that be by raising funds, referring patients to studies, engaging with policymakers through PFDDs. These are all things that we obviously cannot do on our own, and where we really do rely on you, the advocacy leaders to make those things happen. And then I could not finish this without acknowledging my home team at CHOP. So these are many of the individuals who support those specialty groups that I'd shown on that infrastructure slide. And it's a terrific group of people who have helped us get to where we are today. And yeah, that is my talk. Questions? Thanks, Keith.
So I think I think to make clear that GLIA CTN 2 is sort of the clinical trial business end of a lot of the things that we can do here, and that's figuring out, kind of understanding all of the different parts of the ALD and leukodystrophy ecosystem is sometimes challenging even for the people involved in the process. But GLIA CTN is really leading the way, and a lot of really great infrastructure with some really helpful funding, and they've been a really important partner for what we've been trying to do here. And as a community at ALD Connect, we really see our role as kind of a primary gathering place for the ALD community, to share ideas, to come together, to bring both families and physicians together to help build some infrastructure that is maybe somewhat specific to the ALD community, but certainly shared with some of the other partners like GLIA CTN. So, Florian is going to say a few words. I think he's got to. I want to say a few words about kind of where we've been, where we're headed. I'm going to let him speak, and we'll be close to being done. So, thank you very much, Omar.
Thanks.
Yeah.